Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Halloween. Thanks for joining us here this morning. My name is Caitlin Kane. I'm the CEO of the World Trade Center of New Orleans, which serves the state of Louisiana. And I'm happy to have you all at the first dialogue of Trade Week. We are here today to talk about doing business in Indian country, identifying and navigating business opportunities in tribal lands. And some may question about, well, what's the significance of this to international trade? And so many of the tribal lands are treated kind of like foreign countries, right? They're all sovereign nations. So very similar in terms of the navigating regulatory and policy issues and barriers, very similar to what you would find in international trade as you would find with opportunities in tribal lands. So with us here today is a panel of experts to discuss what those business opportunities are and ways in which small and medium enterprises in particular can reap some benefits of pursuing opportunities in tribal areas. Our moderator today is Adam Crepelle, who's the General Counsel for A&E Office Machines. Adam has an array of Indian law and policy experience. He is an enrolled citizen of the United Choctaw Nation and has served on the tribe's Election Committee, Diabetes Coalition, and Tribal Security and Community Services Committee. He is the former vice president of the California Indian Law Association and is co-founder of the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Louisiana. Adam is an attorney and serves as general counsel and for A&E Office Machines, and he is currently pursuing his LLM in Indigenous Peoples Law and Policy at the University of Arizona. Please help me in welcoming Adam as today's moderator. Would you take it from here?
All right, thank you, Caitlin, and thank you for having us. A lot of you guys might be wondering why we care about doing business in Indian country in Louisiana. Most people, barely know we have tribes, but they're big contributors to the state's economy, over $1 billion a year, thousands of jobs. Likewise, in Oklahoma, those guys are keeping the states afloat. So lots of opportunities, and hopefully you guys can learn a little bit about how to be informed. Immediately on my right is Miss Annetta Abbott. She's the incoming president-elect of the Oklahoma Indian Chamber of Commerce. Farther right is Mr. Boyd Miller. He's the current president of the Oklahoma Indian Chamber of Commerce and leader of the Choctaw Procurement, or Preferred Supplier Program, excuse me. Then we have Marshall Pierite farther down, President and CEO of the Pierite Group, former chairman of the Tunica Biloxi tribe. Okay, so up first, guys, what kind of businesses do tribes have? To anybody? Yeah.
I think, do we need that mic, or are we mic up and good to go?
It sounds like you're good to go, yeah.
With a lot of the tribes, there are a lot of, we need this mic.
We do? Okay.
When people think of industry within the tribes, a lot of times they think of that we only have gaming. We make all of our money off gaming. And with some tribes that is true, but the tribes over the years, they've learned the need to diversify, and they have expanded into the areas of agritourism, into defense contracts, and I'll let Boyd elaborate more on one of the defense contracts that the Choctaw Nation has with the United States. But we have so much more that they've diversified into, from tourism, defense. I'm drawing a blank here, but that's kind of, it's not just gaming anymore.
So, good morning. Let me give you a little bit of an overview of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. We're the third largest tribe in the United States. The Choctaw Nation is 1/4 of the state of Oklahoma. And the revenues that are produced from our 10.5 county area and from our industry does, as Adam said, the state of Oklahoma's economy is much like Louisiana. There's a lot of issues there and a lot of problems. And so our contribution alone, our tribe alone, will contribute close to $2 billion in economic development each year, with a total of around $10 billion from the surrounding tribes as well. In Oklahoma, there are 39 registered tribes within the state there, and Choctaw Nation, again, being the third largest in the United States, with the Navajos being the largest and Cherokee Nation being the second largest. At Choctaw Nation, we are diversified. As Annetta said, we don't have all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. We don't have casinos as just our main income. We hold the largest defense contract ever issued, and we build military equipment, trailers, so forth, for the military. We build fins. For the missiles, we build missile casings. Is just one of our manufacturing plants. We also export munitions to Italy. The Fiocchi company in Italy, we manufacture 3 different calibers of bullets for them, and that's another one of our business units. We're currently in 32 different states across the United States. Chili's Restaurants is another one of our businesses as well, something that you're a little more familiar with. We have several different businesses that we operate as far as travel plazas. We also have our casinos. We have casino resorts as well. And we have agriculture, cattle business. We own 7 large ranches that we produce beef and buffalo as well. And then we have the timber industry as well that we have. We have over 10,000 employees. At the rate that we're currently growing, we will, by the year 2020, we will probably exceed that amount to around 20,000 employees. And combined, in the southern part of the state with the Chickasaw Nation, we are the largest employer in the state of Oklahoma. So when you look at our vendor interaction and with the companies that we do business with, you're looking at a database of around 24,000 different vendors. So we buy everything from diapers to motor graders. I mean, so we have a large vendor database that we work with. We also have what's called our preferred supplier program, which is geared towards our minority-owned companies and gives them preference as well. So that's basically just a small overview of what we do at Choctaw Nation and how we've grown and how we network and how we interact with the other tribes. We are often looking for partnerships as well in business opportunity. We have our own medical, we have 3 divisions basically. We have our health division, our commerce division, which is our income division, and then we have our government division, which is the services division. So each of those, from a procurement standpoint, need everything. So these type of conventions we go to, and inevitably we always pick up a new vendor. We always create that new partnership, which is wonderful to do business with another minority company or not. It's not a requirement. It's simply a requirement if you're registering with the preferred supplier program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pierite. I'm from Marksville, Louisiana, a member of the Tunica Biloxi tribe. In a 23-year span, I served in every capacity on the tribal government, from council member to tribal chairman. At the time, our tribes has been engaged in gaming for over 24 years, and we felt the need to diversify about 10 years ago because of what we've seen the gaming industry, the transition in the gaming industry because of market saturation, competition, and lack of disposable income. So we decided to venture into the small dollar lending industry, which at the time I was extremely opposed to it because I felt it was predatory lending. And one night I had a dream, and it came to me: if you don't like something, do not sit down and be critical of it. Get involved and change it. So we decided to get involved in the small dollar lending and change the industry. Change the industry in the to the point where we challenging the industry to do well while you're doing good. And doing well while you're doing good is making sure that the consumers is protected, that you're lending responsibly, and you put resources in place to benefit the consumers long term. Programs such as financial empowerment, we wanted to make sure that our consumers, as they exit our program, they're better off in their financial lives than they enter into our program. We also put measures in place. We was the first small dollar lending to do credit reporting, which help restore one's credit. Our ultimate goal, we took an $86,000 investment 7 years ago and turned it into a $100 million company. And we are extremely proud of what we're done, and we are extremely proud of what we are about to do. Because what we are about to do, our next goal is to attempt to rid the industry of triple-digit interest rate. And by doing so, we can bring clarity to our consumers in their financial lives, and as well as we also want to empower our consumers and as well as empower our own tribal members to make their lives better by providing economic development opportunities to them, give them resources and tools for them to become entrepreneurs themselves. One of the things that we have been doing, myself, Mr. Adam Crepelle, and Mr. Ernest Sickey, we are founders of the Louisiana Native American Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce is going to act as a resource to tribes and individual tribal members to give them the ability to empower themselves, to help build their own companies, educate them to a level that is needed, and also to help them build relationships into the business communities.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Marshall.
Just to add some figures for you, and Boyd briefly mentioned this, but with the gaming in the state of Oklahoma in August of the 2016 fiscal year, Oklahoma, the gaming industry contributed $7.2 billion to Oklahoma's economy. And that figure is expected to be just from gaming $10 billion this year that we're giving to the state. It's not the money, that's the part that we give to the state of Oklahoma per our compacts with the 39 tribes. Nationally, the gaming revenue for 2016 was $30.2 billion. And with that, if you're thinking, how can I do business with the tribes? I'm not particularly, I don't have a business that's related to gaming. They need everything from soap vendors to printing to advertising, you name it, the food service industry. There are several things. And some of the other industry that the tribes have branched into, some of the ones in Oklahoma that I work with the American Indian Chamber, a lot of them are branching into renewable energy, such as solar and wind, and also oil and gas. And I know Marshall alluded to financing, helping creating financial institutions. A lot of the tribes are creating their own banks and their own credit unions. We just held our annual business summit with the American Indian Chamber of Commerce of Oklahoma, and one of our panels was the need to create banks or financial institutions within Indian country, because a lot of our young, our small business owners find it difficult to get loans, and this way we're able to work with them through our CDFIs and our banks and create loans for them, whether it's $500 for an artist to buy something to get them started on their business, or it's helping them buy a building for their new business. So I just wanted to throw those things in.
Yeah, thanks, Annetta. Yeah, and building off the financing thing, one of the ways tribes are able to do that is state laws typically don't apply on the reservation. So obviously the hot thing with a lot of people is marijuana. Have you guys been approached for any marijuana deals so far?
As far as industry? No.
Yes. Yeah, at different conventions, we're cornered several times and said, when are you going to start growing your own pot and all this kind of stuff? And we currently, that's not on our books. We have had some very well put together business plans that have been presented to us. But right now, that's just not on our agenda. It's just not something that we are looking at. But to tag off of what Annetta had said about how do I do business with a tribe, and you touched on this just a little bit, one of the things that you have to understand when you are working with a tribe going into that is that there are still a lot of cultural pieces that are associated with a tribe. So, you know, when you come into their house, so to speak, at least learn the first word of hello or something like that in the language or so forth. It opens a lot of doors for you just to show that you took the time to recognize their greeting, so forth. The other thing and that's just simply from a cultural standpoint, but the other thing too is that you need to understand what sovereignty means and the taxes associated with being working with a sovereign nation and so forth, and the governing venues that's associated with it. Most all contracts, most all terms and conditions that are issued through a tribe will state that in there, that they will always be the governing venue on their lands. And to be real honest, if you don't accept that, you're probably not going to do business with them. So that was just a key thing I wanted you to remember. Always remember that when you're looking at those contracts or you're looking at a PO being issued to you, that it will state that in the terms and conditions, and that is common practice with most all tribes.
Yes, and also to further discuss how you build relationship with tribes, I fully agree. You have to understand what tribal sovereignty is. And I tell, when I was chairman, and everybody or anybody that came to do business with Tunica, Biloxi, I wanted to make sure that a vision or a strategic plan was established. And one of the things I like to take a faith-based approach to everything. And the faith-based approach I like to do is develop understanding, know who I'm doing business with, make sure the due diligence is done, and give the opportunity for whoever is at the other side of the table to fully understand tribal sovereignty, to fully understand the culture behind the tribe, and to help them navigate the waters. Because I think in order for you to be a truly successful partner, you have to know where the value is at. And lots of times people look at the value is in the success. I look at the values in the sacrifice. What have you done for the tribes? What have you done for the tribal community and the non-tribal community? One of the things we make sure with all of our tribal partners that they invest in the tribal community and the non-tribal community that surround us. We talked about the tribal lending. One of the things that's close to our heart is we don't want to leave our tribal members behind. We are working on financial empowerment program to take throughout Native American country, as well as a credit restoration program. And as well as we want to make sure that our members and the non-tribal members that surround our community is developed as far as workforce development and job training. All those things is in place, and as well as making sure our employees or potential employees, if they have any social disorders, we give them the vehicle to address that as well. And also, I go back to developing a vision. One of the things, one of my favorite verse in the Bible is, where there's no vision, the people perish. But I also add to that is, if there's not unity of the people, then the vision perish. You have to bring your tribal members to a point where they share the vision, and as well as your non-tribal partners, as well as the non-tribal community. And in that vision, you have to utilize all three components of vision. Hindsight, know where you've been, know where you the mistakes you made. Insight, know who you're dealing with. Know how it's going to have an impact on your tribal community and your non-tribal community. And most important, foresight. Foresight is having that vehicle to make sure you bring in a positive change to the tribal community and the non-tribal community alike. Because one of the things is all about, I see in tribal leadership, they don't like to change. And one of my favorite things I tell them that in some point in life, you're gonna have pain. And I'm not talking about physical pain, I'm talking about spiritual pain. And I tell them that the pain of change is difficult, but the pain of remaining the same is extremely difficult. And if you don't diversify, you're going to be left behind. So that's why you have to make sure you use all of your members to make sure you put things in place that you're always moving forward, you're always progressing. Amen?
Yeah, Marshall and Boyd both touch on culture and community when dealing with tribes. Can you elaborate on the significance of that when somebody's approaching you with a business deal? Do you look for something that's going to build the community or promote the tribe's culture in particular? Is that more likely to spark a deal?
Yeah, well, one of the things is what we utilize at Pierite Group and the clients when we get an opportunity to build a business. Before you build a business, you have to build your people up. And when you build your people up, you allow your people to help you build the business. The investment has to be first in the people and not in the property.
The cultural aspect of any decision that we make is important to us as a tribe. Our government is set up as we have our chief, our assistant chief, and then we have our councilmen, which represent 12 different districts. So within that setup, all decisions will go before them at some point and so forth. And that is one of the key components of culturally, does this fit with what we're trying to develop within the nation? How will it benefit our members? How will it impact the nation's economy towards the services that we provide to the members and so forth? And, one of the things through the Preferred Supplier Program is that we work and coach with our vendors some of the do's and don'ts, if you will. Our recent build was a $600 million plus headquarters building. And part of one of the pieces for that procurement was the office furnishings alone for that building. We're going to exceed somewhere around $12 million. So we spent a summer, 2 summers ago, up in the north, up in Michigan, where all of the major office furnishing companies are located, and to find the right company to vet out the correct person who would be the best fit for us. And I remember one in particular when they came with their presentation and they were showing it to us, and they had teepees on all of the chairs. Well, Choctaw Nation, we never lived in a teepee. We're not teepee Indians, okay? So again, I say, be careful about the cultural aspects. Know the tribes that you're working with, and so forth. So
to kind of follow on that, you must realize that tribes are unique, and they each have their own history, culture, government, protocol, and structure. So what might work with the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma will not work with one of the other tribes. Or if you say, well, I'm doing business with the Caddo Nation of Oklahoma, well, that might not work with the Forest Band Potawatomi in Wisconsin or in Louisiana. So you must know the differences in their culture, in their structure. And also, one of the things, I think what you were talking about, Marshall, is the business environment. Know who you're doing business with. Know what they want. Communication, trust and relationships. Don't go into it being too pushy. Make sure that your leadership and your business, that they don't lump all of us together as American Indians. Realize that we are our own sovereign, government. And I know since this is International Trade Week, a lot of you possibly do business abroad. Well, that's kind of what it's like when you're dealing with a tribe. Even though we're in the United States, we are our own sovereign nation. And I think those are some of the things to consider about do your homework. Know who you're going in to approach. If you're an office furniture company, know, that the Choctaw Nation, that we didn't live in teepees. Or, it's just like if you go to do business in Japan, you're going to learn some of the protocol for greetings, for everything like that you're not going to go in and offend the head of the company or the leader right off the bat. And it's the same thing with the tribes. You have to learn what is the proper protocol for greeting a leader, for doing business with the tribes.
All right, thanks, Annetta. And taking on what you just mentioned, so do tribes care whether you've done business with a tribe before? And if so, does it matter, like, if you're doing business with, say, the Tunica, Biloxi, like with the Choctaw Nation, or is it better if you're, like, dealing with the Chickasaw Nation, a closer tribe?
Past performance with any tribe is beneficial to you. If you start out small, maybe with a smaller tribe or so forth, before you move forward with one of the larger tribes, that always looks good with you. If you're a construction company and your sub-companies are native-owned or minority-owned, that looks good on your portfolio as well when you approach a business opportunity. One of the things, and Annetta touched on this a little bit, that we are trying to do is through the chambers across the United States, the Native American Indian chambers, we're trying to unite those databases. We're trying to coach up, if you will, how to do business, how to understand how different tribes operate, and so forth. I don't want you to leave here thinking that there's always going to be a different way at each individual tribe, and you must conform to that, because tribes are open to change. That's how we grew. I mean, we knew that, that we had to step up our game. We had to step into corporate America, and we've been very successful at it. And in doing that, I owe a lot of that to our vendors, because they taught us, they showed us how we can do work. Another thing you have to consider too is a lot of tribes have tenured people that have been with the tribe since they were young, and those positions have outgrown them. So the approach to that person who's now in a position that, I hate to say that they really aren't that qualified, they rely heavily on vendor input as well. And so it's not to say you are the be-all, end-all, but it is to say that you can understand and help that person to understand the process in which you do business as well. A perfect example of that was, when, again, I go back to the office furniture and so forth, and the training that we received on, who are our incoming employees. And I have to say that the vendors that touched on how you buy furnishings for millennials coming in to work with you was very important. I mean, I aspired to have that corner office, but that was my generation. You got there the first in the morning, you were the last one to leave, and you wanted to have that corner office. Today's kids could care less about that corner office. They want to be there, and they're task oriented. They want to say it's due on Friday, I'll be there in jeans and my tennis shoes and work on my laptop and sit at a community workstation, and they're good with that. So yes, tribes have evolved. So that's the point in what I'm trying to say, is that evolution, though, I attribute to the vendors and the partnerships that we've established with our vendors, and that's what we like to look at. Every year we have an annual luncheon we call it our partnership appreciation, and that's what it's for. It's for we bring our vendors in that we've worked with, and we do appreciate those partnerships, because they have helped us to grow and be one of the most successful tribes in the United States.
And, how do tribal politics impact tribal businesses?
It has a lot of impact on tribal business, but it's like any other tribal like any other government, you do have problems. Look at the United States government, look at municipal governments, and look at state governments. They all are saddled with challenges. And it's how you adapt to it. Tribes have a lot of vehicles at their fingertips that they can utilize to bring stability. One of the things that we work on with, or we are currently working on with a couple of tribes, bring corporate governance strategy to the table. How to, and teach them how to not let politics interfere with business. It also has special vehicles like a Section 17 corporation where it's really it's a separation between the politics and the business. And anybody that does a huge volume of business with tribes, I always recommend you want to have the tribe set up a Section 17 corporation where is have your tribal vision, and they have professionals at the same time that can oversee the day-to-day, oversee the business, and not micromanage it, but be there for reporting purposes. But again, to answer your question, it has a huge impact, but I see a lot of transition in Native American country where they are moving from that because they want to grow.
I think what Marshall, just to follow on that, stability is a key with the tribes, but like you say, within any government, even the United States, there are problems with politics or tribal leadership. And I think making a smooth transition is a key. Some tribes work with through the American Indian Chamber with all the different 39 tribes in the state of Oklahoma. Some have term limits for their leaders. With the Choctaw Nation and some of the other ones, they don't have term limits. We have a chairman who has been chairman of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation since 1980-something. They have a very stable form of government. And a way to avoid some of the issues, if you're a vendor dealing with the tribe, a lot of the tribes are creating their businesses, their gaming entities, their corporations. It's a separate business. It's not controlled by Chief Batten with the Choctaw Nation is not controlling the day-to-day operations of Choctaw Defense or Choctaw Gaming. So by setting that up as a separate entity, it doesn't really affect the business community within a tribe.
So one of the things that when in the past, and I'm not speaking so much about Choctaw Nation, but other tribal affiliates, they when new leadership came in, they would come in and they would clean house basically, and they did business with the people they wanted to do business with. We don't operate that way. Another piece of our organization is our judicial branch, and within the judicial branch we have a department called ACE, which is our Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Division. So that division has to review any contract. Actually, one of our compliance officers is here, as well as I'm a senior compliance officer. And that is one of the things that we review. So if we have contracts in place that benefit the nation, regardless of leadership change, it's not going to affect that contract. Politics is where it needs to be, and the daily operations of the tribe and how we do our spend is a whole different division from an ethical standpoint.
Do you guys have any quick or need-to-know advice for somebody who wants to do business with the tribe? Like, what would be like one key piece of advice you would give?
Well, one thing I would suggest strongly is that you become if you're here or if you're in any other state, that you do become a member of your American Indian Chamber of Commerce, because they have those contacts within the tribes that they can connect you with. Another example would be your tarot programs, your preferred supplier programs. Get your company registered with them. Several of those programs have tier levels. Maybe you are not a native-owned company, but you have a representative that's native-owned that represents your company, and/or you employ. Some of our criteria is 20% Native Americans. If they're within your company, we put you into that preferred supplier program as well. And those programs help open doors for you. Just because you're in there doesn't guarantee you a contract, but it does help you in being selected to bid a particular project. And in our particular case, we have a bid board that's associated with that. So once you are vetted in that program, you're able to access that bid board and see what's available. Also, FedBiz, you can go to their website. You can go to nativebid.org. There are a lot of different sites that you can go to see what opportunities are out there. And again, I can't emphasize enough the need for all types of vendors. Last year we did $880 million in construction spend, and this year we'll do $600 million plus. So there's opportunity there for everything from water fountains in the building to wallpaper. I mean, it's all the way through. So.
I think one of the things that we do with the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, or my job as the state board president-elect, is to be a connector with the tribes and with the small businesses. I'm seeking out, if I know that the Choctaw Nation has a bid coming open for laptops, you know, Boyd will call me and say, do we have any of our members who are actually, you know, who provide laptops or would like to bid on this project? And so I see myself kind of as a connector between the small businesses and the tribes. And one of the things that I tell a lot of small businesses, if they're complaining to me about, well, you know, I'm a preferred vendor with the Chickasaw Nation or the Choctaw Nation, excuse me, and I can't get any business with them, I remind them that there are 39 tribes within the state of Oklahoma that are still needing, you know, possibly what their service. So don't just focus on the big 3 or 4 or 5 tribes. There are several tribes that could use your business, and to seek out those RFPs or those bids that are available.
I just want to make a quick comment that in the room today, here we are in Louisiana, I see 2 of our preferred vendors in the room here. This young lady here. Franklin Printing, yeah. And you're based here, correct? Yeah, in Baton Rouge, yeah, and we're honored that you're here, you know. So, and then Intertribal Software, they write software for tribal nations as well, and their different programs and so forth. So and Adam, A&E offices, office supply and so forth. And so, yeah, it's an honor to see this wherever we go, and we see that every time because, again, you know, when you're as large as we are and employ as many people, there are so many opportunities that are out there. Now, understand, you must be capable, responsible, and responsive and understand the demographics of your tribes. For example, I mean, we are 1/4 of the state of Oklahoma, but it's 3 hours in any direction. So it's scattered around, you know, how do you get to all of those different offices and so forth? And so understand that going into it, that when you're working with tribal nations, a lot of times you're not going to have one location that you're always going to have that point of contact is. It can be scattered throughout a large demographic area.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions they would like to ask? Yeah. Mr. Palmer, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think as you guys know, I've been covering the NAFTA negotiations, and within that negotiations, Canada has made a proposal aimed at facilitating and encouraging more intertribal trade across North America. One, I just wondered, has anybody from either the Canadian government or the U.S. government discussed this proposal with you and asked for any of your input on that? I'm just curious if there's been any outreach. And then secondly, could you talk about the degree to which tribes, you know, the Choctaw Nation, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't catch the name of your tribe.
Tunica, Biloxi.
The degree to which you guys might trade with indigenous people in Canada or in Mexico already?
I can touch on that a little bit. Formally, are there discussions going on? No. We have not had that. We've not been involved in that. Do we do business with Canadian Indigenous tribes? Yes. Do we include them in particular projects that are out there? Yes, we do. One thing you have to understand is tribes migrated from all over. So one of the tribes in particular recently was we were looking at a propane natural gas distribution plant that we were wanting to put in. And we needed a rail system, we needed the whole 9 yards. We needed a company that was capable to do this, that was familiar with that type. And there was actually a company that was, you've heard of the tribe called the Chippewas. All right, well, the Chippewas actually are a sub-tribe of the Cree Nation. And the Cree Nation is up in Alberta, I believe it is, Canada, so forth. And so we had, although this company did not have recognition in the U.S., we had, in order to use them, we wanted to use them, we went for their affiliation in Canada so that they were recognized in Canada. And yes, we, being a sovereign nation, put that into our policy that we would accept that. Now, whether our U.S. government currently accepts that accreditation or not, I don't know, but I do know that we have that in our policy, that we will accept that. So.
Well, one of the things we're working on through our Chamber of Commerce is also to include a Native Trade Association, which would strongly encourage all tribes to trade with each other as well as First Nations. And hopefully we can get that up and running by the second quarter or third quarter of next year.
Let me just add one thing too, and I didn't want to cut you off there, but we work real close with the minority development councils throughout the U.S. and different locations as well, because within those councils too, they're also looking for support. They're looking for companies to work with them. So it's a back and forth type thing. And all of you know as well as I do that the trades are suffering now. People are all going into the IT fields, and you don't have journeymen out there, you don't have HVAC people out there, plumbers and so forth, those type things. So they're reaching out to the tribes for that too. But we're in the same boat. We need those people as well. So it's a big issue out there currently. But we share that information, and that's why we do partner with these other organizations as well when we need those type of opportunities. Yes, sir. The Mississippi Band of Choctaws does not. In history, we all came from the North Florida area, the Choctaws did, as they migrated up, and then through the Trail of Tears, when the Indian Removal Act, when they were removed from Mississippi and so forth, there were portions of the Choctaws who remained in Mississippi. So the Mississippi Band of Choctaws is their own governing tribe itself. Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. So. Yes. Not necessarily lean on them, but would we partner with them at some point? Yes. Would we partner with any other tribe at some point? Yes, and we have in the past. We've partnered on projects before. So,
I think also that we should share is that the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, even though we're based in Oklahoma, we have members throughout the United States. We have a large contingency of Choctaw Nation members in California, in Texas, all over the United States. So it's the same thing like you were talking about with the Cherokees. There's the Cherokee Nation, which is based in Oklahoma, and then there's the Eastern Band of Cherokees. So, and it's all that we were all one tribe to begin with, and through the migration and the Trail of Tears, we've kind of separated.
And if it's owned by the tribe, how are the benefits of ownership shared with members
did you want to talk first? Okay, so when I said earlier, there are three divisions of Choctaw Nation. One being the health division, you have the government division, and then you have our commerce division. So all of our income producing properties that we own, our businesses and so forth, all fall within commerce. Where does that money go? That money goes back into the government side for services. We are not a per capita tribe. We do not issue checks to our members. What we do is that we provide education, health care, and any other business development, training, career development, all of these there are 96 different programs that are funded through our commerce side, that the monies that they make that come into there. And I have to say, and I'm very proud of this fact, and I'm bragging a little bit here on us, but if tomorrow our cash cows, and when I say the cash cows, I'm talking about our major resorts, our major casino resorts, if they shut down, we are sustainable for 14 years. All 96 programs, no one would be affected. I mean, there's that much set aside that we keep in reserve. In that reserve is replenished just from the interest of the monies that we have put aside. So that's our economic development for our people, for our members, for that growth that we do expect. So. Oh, one other thing. Just because we may own a construction company or we may own a print company does not mean that that is all in-house. Understand. Remember I talked about the audit, compliance, and ethics division. Okay. We may own that business in particular, but they have to bid that project just like any other company. And we're not just giving them that work. You know, they have to be capable, responsible, and responsive to whatever that opportunity is that's currently being issued.
You guys don't know how hard this is for us to share a mic because usually everywhere that we are, we're interrupting one another. So we're both being on good behavior and not interrupting. The one thing I would like to share with, if we see, or if the Choctaw Nation or any of the tribes, if they see a company that's very successful and doing well, they might approach the owners of that company and purchase it. For example, Texoma Print was a very successful company, printing company, and had been around for years in Durant, Oklahoma, and the Choctaw Nation bought them. The Chickasaw Nation, there was a construction company, which they purchased, and then it falls under them. But with the Choctaw Nation and the printing company, they kept the family on that was running the company, but now it is owned by the Choctaw Nation. But like Boyd said, they don't automatically, just because they're owned by the Choctaw Nation, get every printing bid that comes down or every T-shirt bid. It still has to be bid out.
Yes, sir.
I have brochures back there as well, so you don't have to write this down. But yeah, disadvantaged, Native-owned, veteran-owned, women-owned, all of your same classifications that are within the SBA criteria for your Small Business Administration, any of African-American, Hispanic, all of that is considered in the preferred supplier program. So. But we also, again, we capture if those companies are also hiring natives as well. The difference between the preferred programs and the TARO programs, which is the Tribal Employment Rights Office, is that they somewhat monitor the vendor, and there's a fee associated with that whenever you join that organization. Your preferred programs don't have a fee associated with that. Our goal is to provide that opportunity to minority-owned companies or native-owned companies. That's the goal in that, and we don't feel like we should charge you to do that service for you. So all we ask is that if we present you to one of our departments, that you're fully capable and responsible to answer that, whatever that task is at that point. Yes, ma'am. Didn't you have your, yeah. It's a combination of all. Is there a pecking order? Yes. Yeah. If you're registered within the preferred, our policy that we have is that we ask that our departments go to that department first and ask, just like Annetta was talking about, reach out to the chamber, reach out to the preferred programs. Can we keep this money in Indian country? You know, that's going to be your first priority. If we don't have that, yeah, we're going to reach out. Does it keep anybody from bidding? No, absolutely not. That's why I gave you those other bid sites that you would see opportunity that are out there, because you may not have any type of minority affiliation or tribal affiliation, but that's okay. We want to do business with you, you know, so that's not an issue. If it came down to a native-owned company and a non-native-owned company, both capable, who do you think the tribe's going to go with? I mean, you know, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So, but does it eliminate you as a vendor? Absolutely not. No, in no way. We do not have a lot of times in those preferred programs all of those categories that we need to fill. We would love to, but that's just not something we have. Perfect example, Ethan is our IT commodity buyer, and he works with everybody from Oracle to your smart board providers and so forth. So it's a huge gamut. Do you want to speak on that just a second?
My name is Ethan Bashirs, and I work for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma as the IT commodity manager. One of the things that I would like to stress is get out and get to know what conferences are in the areas that deal with the tribal nations. Next week, I think there's a huge conference in Arizona called TribalNet. Anything having to do with the tribal and technology is going to be at that conference. There's another large conference, the RES conference, is the Reservation Economic Summit. It is all of the major tribes, any of the small tribes, large tribes, they all go together and they talk about how we can keep money in Indian country. How can we do business with the smaller mom and pop companies, because that's where we want to keep as much as we can as far as helping ourselves be self-sufficient. So if you employ Native Americans, if you want to do business with us, make sure that it's advantageous to both companies. So we understand that y'all are there to make money as well, but at the same time we're there to save money. So reach out and find these conferences. I know the RES conference, there's like 6 or 8 smaller contingencies around the country that you can attend, and that's where you're going to get to know your vendors. That's where you're going to get to know your native tribes. So make that effort.
Caitlin, to go back to your question on minority businesses, with the tribes, they typically look at if it's one of their tribal members, if it's a bid and a tribal member has bid on it and they can do the job. And then they go to a native-owned company and there's the pecking order. With the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA or Indian Health Services, they typically, when they have an RFP out with bids, they immediately look at, is it a native-owned business first that has applied? And then they go down to, is it a minority-owned business, which could be women-owned, Hispanic-owned, African-American-owned, and then if they still don't have the qualifications that they need, or someone who is bid who's native or minority-owned, then they go down to and they take, the best possible one for the bid, but there is a pecking order.
That's one of the things the Louisiana American Chamber of Commerce is going to be looking at doing, is having a robust vendor management program to act as a resource not only for tribes, but for any businesses within Louisiana or throughout that want to do business with the Louisiana tribes. We're going to, I would say about 65 to 70% of our vendors in the gaming industry is from out of state. We want to make sure we do business with first Native American companies and as well as in-state companies as well.
So one of the things I want to give you as well, that when you were talking about opening those doors, again, your preferred program would be your best step if you could qualify for that, because they know the departments that will align you. We have a little thing that we do actually, where we bring them in and we put them before Shark Tank, just like the Shark Tank show. And so that they're presented in front of those departments, and it helps them as a company understand what it is we're actually looking for. We're going to help them regardless, but at the same time, it kind of just opens that door for them, gives them a little more exposure as well. But there were some sites that I wanted to give you, and this is just not for Choctaw Nation. This is for a lot of the native nations that they use these sites for bid sites. And that's fbo.gov. There's also fedbid.gov, govtribe.com, and the Tribal Gov Institute. And all of those are locations where you can find opportunities from the different tribes as well, aside from the preferred programs. Yes, sir.
As a sovereign nation, what is a direct foreign relationship or direct foreign partnership look like from y'all's standpoint? What are the advantages, disadvantages?
There are some advantages. One of the things is the owner direct pay. In other words, being a sovereign nation, you may contract with us, but we choose in the contract that we will pay for all of the supplies that you need to do this project, because with owner direct pay, we have that sovereignty that you don't have. So we're not paying those taxes on those, so to speak. Okay, so that would be one advantage. The specifics on our exporting to Italy, again, there's another advantage there from export taxing and so forth. So did that answer what you? Okay, yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi. Well, I believe you told me last night that there are 67, is that correct?
567.
567 recognized tribes in the United States. But in Mexico and Canada, there's not an analogous system of government recognition of tribes.
I do not know the answer to that. I truly don't.
I just wondered if that was any sort of obstacle in terms of a Canadian tribe or Mexican.
To be real honest, I'm not going to seek out a tribe in Mexico or seek out one in Canada. If an opportunity comes up and the company is affiliated with a tribe in one of those two, I'm going to try to make sure that they are recognized federally. That would be my responsibility there to do that. But no, there's plenty of business right here in the U.S. that I'm not going to reach out at this point. One of the things that President Obama recognized when he came to Durant, Oklahoma, of all places, where our tribe is, and we were the most successful Promise Zone HUD area ever in all of those Promise Zones. That he wanted to see what are they doing that is right. And one of those things is that we are trying to keep spend as local as possible and within Indian country. And that, again, that sounds like we're trying to exclude vendors, but it's not. When you see the overall picture, you have large companies, AT&T, Grumman's, these large, huge companies that have diversity divisions within their companies, and will go through their native owned company or their minority. We're still doing business with them. One of our largest contracts that we have is with GE. They supply us with all of our imaging equipment for our hospitals and so forth, the x-ray machines and those type things. But it's run through a native-owned company called AICCO Enterprises. They can offer me the same price that I can go to the OEM for. Well, where's the advantage there? So naturally I'm going to go with the native-owned division of GE, so forth.
I am truly impressed with your tribe.
Thank you. We're honored to be up here with you. Let me tell you. So it's been a long road. We've, you know, I left the tribe 30 years ago to go to college, and I tell the story of back in the day, 30 years ago. I was part of one of the first purchases that we made of new vehicles, and we bought these 3 new vans, and I was so proud to be part of that, and I wanted all my friends at school to see me driving one of these new vans, you know, and the tribe had money. I mean, we our bingo halls were working, you know, and we were able to buy these 3 new vans, and you know, we currently have a fleet now of 1,400 vehicles, but that we refresh twice a year, but I think. Yeah, well, and I was 16, so you know, and so that Saturday after we bought them, they stuck me in the driver's seat to haul these little kids up to this camp and all this stuff. Well, we would never do that now, you know, but yeah, we've come a long way, let me tell you. So.
Is there a special place within the vendor management systems to, let's say that your company is, let's just say we're women, we're female owned, as we are, and we're under the preferred vendor programs. But let's say there's some things that set us apart. Is there a mechanism in place to identify that in the vendor, preferred vendor program, or can you give us some insight? Because coming one-on-one is fantastic because we, you know, everybody gets to know one another. You have a name and a face and some relationship building there. But when you're talking about, I think you said 39 tribes right in Oklahoma, right?
Correct.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of, you know, working through time management on everybody's side and trying to get in and kind of explain who you are. So is there a sharing of that information, a way to
Yes.
best get it out that you would suggest for us?
Within the preferred programs, one of the things that Annetta will follow up as I leave this presidency and she takes over is the unification of those preferred programs and those tarot programs. Up until the past couple years, they weren't talking. You know, the different tribes weren't sharing that vendor information, and now we are. We've even taken it a step further. We challenged 3 years ago, and it was a long, hard road, that the Bureau of Indian Affairs and Indian Health Services, which these are federal programs, okay? They were designed to assist the tribes in the development of their own health care systems to become self-sufficient. But they weren't using any native-owned vendors in that. So the challenge was, you know, why? Show me where your spend is on your native-owned companies. You know, and they were putting that all, grouping it all under minority. So we challenged them, and yes, they broke that out. They did. So now we know how much is actually being spent with them as well. But to that, I say that to say that the connectivity of that database from our U.S. government to our preferred programs is in the works, so that now you don't necessarily have to seek those out. We will have access to them to provide them with the vendors that are capable for whatever that set-aside is or whatever that contract being let, as long as it fits the bill for whatever your company is. Now, from a more local standpoint, within each individual tribe, in your registration in the preferred programs or the tarot programs, you have your capability statement and you have the description of your company. All right. Don't necessarily toot your horn. I mean, everybody's going to say, I'm the best at this or I'm the best at that or whatever, okay? That's all relative. I'll decide if you're the best of it, but I'm just teasing. But the one thing that I tell each one of my vendors is bullet point your capabilities, because these systems work off a keyword search. So the more hits that you can bring to your site in that will help you. When you said you specialized in a particular thing, that's the thing you want to bring to the forefront, you know, and put that in there so that if someone's looking for whatever that is, you know, sublimation, you know, whatever, they put that in there. There it is. Boom, you pop up. You come to the top, you know, as a vendor. So I hope that helps. Yeah, so, okay. We also have another one of our vendors, which is the Intertribal. And I'm sorry, but Billy, do you want to speak on what you feel like maybe some of the advantages are as a preferred?
And I'm Billy Miller with Intertribal Software. We're a software company out of Durant, Oklahoma, right in the backyard of Choctaw Nation. And we develop software exclusively for Native tribes. One comment that came to mind when she was talking is show them what's unique about you, so that you kind of stand out. Like you're not really tooting your own horn, but you know you're unique. And in our situation, we are very unique. And so it's important for us for them to share information with other tribes and other preferred vendor programs because that's all we do business with. And but it helped us get in the door with Choctaw Nation. It helps us get in the door with all the other nations. Because like I said, they share this information as well as Ethan mentioned, going to the conferences and what have you. You know, you'll have these native folks walking around and go, well, who does your this or who does your that? And you know, and they tell each other and because our salesmen won't even be traveling and we'll get a phone call because we went to this convention and we talked to somebody at Choctaw or Chickasaw or whatever and they told us you do their software, can you do us a quote? You know, so it helps get you out there and it does a lot more than just what's on the website or something like that because the folks talk. I mean, it's folks in the same community, they talk to each other. And it's been a wonderful thing for us.
And we truly consider Intertribal Software as one of our success stories because, Billy, how many different states are y'all in now and tribes?
I don't know this count of the states. We're about 45 tribes nationwide, from Barrow, Alaska to Cherokee, North Carolina to California.
And again, that is truly from the Tarot programs and from the preferred programs and that networking of sharing of, and we consider them one of our success stories because we do share that information of their company when we're out and about, as well as any of our companies, not just their company, but that's a small local company that is now national and have a lot of exposure all over the U.S. when it comes to doing business in Indian country.
And of course, Julie, we would like to say that we want you to come back to our business summit, pay the registration fee, and that's how you're going to network and do business in Indian country, or come to the one that the conference that the Louisiana Chamber is going to put on. But as Boyd was saying, that the tribes do talk and share information, and you're going to network and make friends. And we're talking about doing business in Indian country, but one of the things we do with the Chamber, it's not just about doing business with the tribes. It's about connecting and doing business, making those connections to do business with other Native-owned companies. So someone you might have sat with or met during the gathering, you know, might become your partner or your biggest account. So it's more than just doing business with the tribes in Indian country.
I want to bring up one other point.
Yeah, sorry, we only have about 5 minutes left, so do you guys have any quick closing remarks?
I'll be quick, and then I'll give it back to you, right? Here we go, fighting over the mic again. Just to kind of sum it all up, doing business in Indian country has come a long way in just the last 100 years or so, and we've overcome the obstacles and barriers such as language and cultural differences. I can remember the story my grandmother used to tell when she was a young girl. She used to go with her mother to the bank in southeastern Oklahoma. She's full-blood Choctaw. And she would have to serve as the translator because my great-grandmother only spoke Choctaw. So doing business in Indian country was a 12-year-old girl communicating and being a translator for her mother at the bank. And we've come a long way since then. We managed to overcome the obstacles, whether it was language or cultural differences, to, you know, create the large corporations and entities that we now run as tribes. And I want to show you, this is a great book on working in Indian country, building successful business relationships with American Indian tribes. And it's written by Larry Cowan, and he actually started working with, it was based on his experience partly working with some of the pipelines in North Dakota and South Dakota. But this is a great book, and it talks about, you know, recognize, don't come in very pushy. Or if you're pitching to a tribe, You might have to present to a business council, to a tribal leader, to a preferred buyer, and be prepared to wait. We typically do not do anything very fast in Indian country. It might be a month or so before the tribe meets again or the business council. So just learn to change your, what you might assume is your normal business practices when trying to do business in Indian country.
And another thing too is that the perception that we're not really hearing what you're saying. You may see folded arms or looking down, but that is a cultural thing. The eye contact thing is not a thing of disrespect, but it was years ago you were told not to look someone in the eye, that was offensive. So those are some of the things that you might take into consideration too. It won't always happen, but the other key thing that I wanted to say as well is not only trying to do business as a vendor, but look at your tribes as well as partners, and for possible partnerships. If you're looking for a expansion or a partnership of a business or so forth, we have a whole division that's all they do is they look at these opportunities and different companies that are coming to us wanting us to buy into their operation or to be a partner within that operation and so forth. So there's opportunity there as well if you're in the expansion process of your business. Just be prepared when you come in there to be on your A game and to have your business proposal ready, your business plan and so forth, because these are top-notch people that are going to be reviewing this information. We don't just give money to anybody. We're making sure that this is something that we will make money and that the ROI is within that 7-year time frame that we'd like to see, that our investment's coming back to us.
Yeah, I just want to end just to remind everyone that a sovereign government, we are a nation within a nation. We have to operate as a nation. And our overall responsibility is to our people and to our government. And as I see, Choctaw, y'all do an outstanding job, and I can't wait to attend one of y'all business meetings. But one of the things about Native American country, as I began in the beginning, it's a transition taking place. Now I see leaders that are visionaries, and visionaries are often those that are tormented by those that are closest to them, because they wake up to what is going to be, where others wake up to what is. And visionaries is looking for partners that is truly going to be leaders with the tribes, because leadership, we have to understand the definition of leadership in Native American country. Leadership is all about leaders that do more, help others do more, learn more, and become more. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for attending, and hope you can do business in Indian country soon.